Slay the Spire, a game that came out nearly 8 years ago, just hit a new all-time concurrent player peak on Steam, blowing past 57,000 players during the holiday season.
Now that's what I'd like to call a freaking comeback, guys.
Just for your reference, this thing's launch peak in 2018 was around 33,000, which is not huge but not little too. This game showed us the difference between aging and fermenting. Why now though, guys? Why after all those years? Why did it spike now? Well, two reasons. First, the 2025 Steam Winter Sale slapped it down to $249 freaking dollars. Yep, you heard me right. $249 until January 5th. Valve looked around, found you, gave you the 7 deadly sins freaking blessing and cut it down by 90%. Secondly, Slay the Spire 2 is looming on the horizon, so veterans are relapsing and newcomers are discovering why this game is one of the best deck builders out there. This game is still relevant because it's still that good. It's timeless, it's enjoyable, and extremely dangerous.
For your non-gaming life.
Slay the Spire is deceptively simple in the way a bear trap is simple. You start a run with a tiny underwhelming deck that looks like it was assembled by your freaking 3-year-old nephew playing Lego. A fixed amount of energy that immediately tells you no, more than your crush.
And a very optimistic amount of health.
You start your ascent floor by floor, fighting enemies, picking cards, grabbing relics, and slowly realizing the game isn't asking you if you'll break it, it's asking you how. Every run is a self-contained experiment in greed, restraint, and hubris, and the magic is how fast it gets you invested. Within 5 minutes, guys, 5 minutes, you're no longer playing a game. You're doubling down on a story that even your own imagination doesn't believe anymore 3 rooms ago. Cards are where the real brain damage begins because they're not just attacks and blocks, they're practically everything. Attacks deal damage, skills block or manipulate the fight, and powers sit there quietly like a loaded gun pointed at the rest of the run. Powers are especially important because they do nothing immediately, guys, which means playing one is a leap of faith. You spend energy now for future value, trusting that the future will actually arrive. Sometimes it does, and you snowball into a machine that scales every single turn, draws half the deck, and deletes bosses in one single rotation. And sometimes you die while your master plan is still warming up, and the game doesn't mock you, it just lets you sit there staring at the ceiling. The beauty of it all is that most cards are balanced in isolation, but the moment they interact, they stop behaving like polite game pieces and start acting like freaking contraband. A card that gives you strength suddenly becomes terrifying when you realize you're attacking 6 times per turn. A block card becomes obscene when it also draws, refunds energy, and triggering 3 relics you forgot you picked up. Speaking of energy. Energy is the leash that keeps you from becoming Kratos and stomping on Olympus too freaking early. You usually get 3 energy per turn, which is enough to make every hand feel slightly unfair. You are constantly staring at a perfect set of cards, knowing full well you can't play them all. And that tension is where the game freaking lives. 1 extra energy can completely change a run. Not because it's flashy, but because it turns
I guess I'll block into I can block and scale and freaking draw at the same time.
That single number governs everything. Whether you set up powers early, whether you survive burst damage, whether your deck actually functions or just looks impressive on paper. And the game loves watching you mismanage it. You'll end turns with unspent energy thinking you played it safe, only to realize later that you're missing damage, missing block, and missing the confidence you had 5 freaking minutes ago.
With interest.
Then come relics, which are passive bonuses that, seem innocent at first until they aren't. Some give you extra energy, some reward you for playing certain cards, some subtly rewrite how the game works, and some look boring enough that you almost skip the tooltip. That's the trap. Relics don't usually break the game alone. They wait patiently for friends. 1 relic that rewards card draw doesn't sound wild until you realize your deck draws constantly. 1 relic that triggers on 0 cost cards doesn't seem impressive until your deck becomes nothing but 0 cost cards. At some point, you look at your relic bar and realize you've accidentally assembled a machine that shouldn't exist, and the game will let you enjoy it.
Briefly, before throwing something worse at you.
Next up are enemies, and that's where the design flexes the hardest, because the game is brutally honest about what's going to happen to you. Every enemy telegraphs your intent, showing you exactly how much damage they'll deal or what nonsense they're about to pull. There is no surprise, no cheap shots, just cold information. If you die, it's not because you didn't know, it's because you chose wrong. And elites, elites amplify this philosophy by offering better rewards in exchange for testing whether your deck actually works outside of theory. You don't have to fight them, but the game knows you will because you want better relics and you're convinced this deck is almost there. And if you thought elites were bad, wait till you get to the bosses. They are full on deck exams. They don't freaking care how clever your combo is if it can't survive long enough to set up, and they don't care how safe you play if you can't scale damage. They exist to ask you one question.
Does this deck do a thing, or does it just pretend?
And what ties all of this together is how the game encourages you to remove cards just as often as you add them. Cutting weak cards feels wrong at first, guys, like you're shrinking options, but it's actually sharpening intent. Smaller decks draw better, execute plans faster, and expose bad ideas freakingly. The game quietly teaches you that more isn't better. Focused is better. By the end of a good run, your deck isn't a pile of tools, it's a weapon of mass freaking destruction. It does one thing extremely well, and everything else exists to support that one single thing. And that's why, guys, that's why the mechanics work so amazingly well together. Cards define your possibilities, energy limits your arrogance, relics warp the rules, and enemies hold you accountable. The game, it never hands you power outright. It gives you opportunities to earn it, misuse it, and occasionally turn it into something completely off the freaking rails. When a run clicks, it feels earned, guys. When it fails, it feels fair. And when you die, staring at the screen, already hovering over new run, you realize the game didn't beat you. It convinced you to try again.
And try again, you will.
Alright, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I've put over 80 hours into Slay the Spire, which doesn't sound impressive until I admit one thing. I've uninstalled it and accidentally reinstalled it at least a dozen times because the game latches onto my freaking brain way too fast and way too aggressively. I don't keep it installed for self-preservation, guys. I literally reinstalled it for this video. Told myself I'll do a quick refresher run, and now I'm on my 5th run from my previous save file and already fighting the urge to record 2 more videos because my deck almost works. And that's how it gets you. It doesn't ask for your time, it takes it.
Politely, while smiling.
And that's the thing, guys. This thing doesn't feel dated at all, not even a little. The mechanics, they are so clean, they are so polished, and they are so confidently designed that nothing creaks. There is no clutter, no systems stacked on systems for the sake of engagement metrics, just rules that make sense, interactions that reward thinking, and punishment that feels deserved. Guys, it doesn't have that battle passes nonsense, daily logins, seasonal resets, or a pop-up begging you to come back tomorrow. It trusts you to play because it's good, and that confidence ages better than graphics or crappy live service systems ever could. Honestly, this game has kind of ruined other deck builders for me. It's not because they're bad, but because Slay the Spire sets a standard that's uncomfortably freaking high. Every time another game throws 10 mechanics at me before I've even learned one, my brain goes,
Remember when Slay just let you play?
It respects your intelligence, it respects your time, and then it dares you to be greedy anyway. That combination is freaking lethal. Which is why the upcoming Slay the Spire 2 scares the freak out of me. It's currently set to release in March 2026, and I'm already mentally preparing, shivering a little, and eyeing my annual leave like,
Yeah, those days were meant for this.
Between that and a few other upcoming games, my social life is already drafting its freaking resignation letter. If the sequel keeps even half the magic of the original, my next upload might get delayed indefinitely. So, if you've never played this, it's currently priced at $249 until January 5th, which is not a recommendation. That's your obligation as a gamer who's a fool for Steam Christmas sales, or any sales for that matter. And if you have already played it, you already know exactly why it's back on top. Now tell me something, gamers and gamerettes. What was the run that completely broke your mental? Or how many times have you uninstalled and reinstalled this thing, pretending you're in control? Let's make this comment section a support group. And I promise, I will uninstall this game by morning.
In 2027.
And guys, thank you once again for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please consider leaving a like and subscribing for more content in the future. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.